From pulling up to inauguration on horseback, to crossing the Atlantic on a flying boat, to rolling squad deep in the beast with tear gas, night vision, and a motorcade of decoys. This is how every US president traveled. And it wasn't just technology evolving. It was the highly trained Secret Service protecting them every mile of the way. Sir, get down! But let's go back to the beginning. 'Cause in George Washington's day, the only way to travel was by horse. But for fancy events, Washington showed up in a cream-colored carriage with 6 matching horses and a driver in full uniform. Fancy! This was the founding father equivalent of pulling up in a Maybach. And Adams and Jefferson kept things similar. Although Jefferson chose to dial back the pompousness and show some humility. So he rode solo on horseback to his own inauguration. No entourage, no carriage. Just Jefferson and a horse vibing their way to the Capitol. But by 1817, America was changing fast, because the steam engine was taking over, and James Monroe became the first president to travel by steamboat. It's a pretty big upgrade from, I hope my ride doesn't poop on me. And yeah, all these early presidents traveled with zero specialized security. The Secret Service didn't exist yet. I'll just be standing over here if you need me, sir. All aboard! In 1833, presidential travel accelerated faster than you could ever imagine, because Andrew Jackson became the first sitting US president to ride a train. Suddenly, trips that took days by carriage took hours by train, and presidents were hooked. And by the mid-1800s, railroads became the go-to way to cover long distances. Van Buren, Tyler, Polk, they all jumped on trains. But here's the problem. Early trains were dangerous. In 1853, President-elect Franklin Pierce was traveling by train with his family when their car derailed, and his 11-year-old son was killed in the crash. Absolutely heartbreaking. But this tragedy made one thing painfully clear. Presidential travel was risky business. So Pierce became the first president to have a full-time bodyguard. A small step, but the first real building block of the security system we know today. And nobody needed protection more than Abraham Lincoln. 'Cause during the Civil War, Lincoln would crisscross all over the country by train to rally troops and inspect the battlefield. But right before his 1861 inauguration, detectives uncovered a plot to stab Lincoln as he stepped off his train in Baltimore. So, to avoid the attack, Abe quietly changed his plans and rode the train in the middle of the night, wearing a big overcoat and a soft felt hat to disguise himself. Great move, sir. You wear my hat and I'll wear yours. No one's gonna notice a thing. But speaking of staying one step ahead of threats, in every era of American history, there's always someone snooping. Today, it's your internet provider, watching everything you do online. That's why I use Private Internet Access, a VPN that hides your IP address and encrypts your connection through a secure tunnel. Think of it like the Secret Service for your internet. Because I actually started using PIA during research for a video. I was sitting in a DC coffee shop digging through some obscure presidential documents online when suddenly the Wi-Fi icon dropped to public network. Great. My search history is now government property. Fortunately, PIA was already running. So even though that cafe router looked like it was built during the FDR administration, all my data stayed encrypted. No leaks, no hacks, no, why is this guy searching William Taft's bathtub? That's when PIA officially became part of the Agent Flappy toolkit. Because without a VPN, your device is broadcasting data that can be seen by hackers, your internet service provider, and even government sensors. But with PIA, if you're on airport Wi-Fi, a coffee shop network, or your cousin's sketchy home router from 2009, your passwords, photos, and keystrokes stay fully protected. But my favorite part? Unlimited devices. Because you can protect your phone, laptop, tablet, and gaming PC all on one subscription. Woohoo! Plus, PIA has servers in 91 countries and all 50 US states, which means you can watch region-locked content like Saving Private Ryan, even if it's not available in your country's streaming library. Just switch your virtual location, refresh, and boom. And if you're thinking, yeah, but what if PIA is keeping my data? Their no-logs policy has been proven multiple times in court. It's the most transparent VPN on the planet. But here's the best part. Because PIA partnered with me, my audience gets an exclusive discount, 83% off, just $2.03 a month, plus 4 months free. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, totally risk-free. So use my link in the description to claim the special Agent Flappy deal and protect your digital life like a true secret agent. But with your online tracks covered, let's get back to the railroad tracks. Because Rutherford B. Hayes became the first president to cross the Rockies, taking a full-blown transcontinental rail tour all the way to the West Coast, hitting California and the Pacific Northwest. This was a huge deal. Imagine the president just rolling into your small town on a train. People went nuts. And it was the same vibe with Chester A. Arthur, who in 1883 visited Yellowstone, becoming the first U.S. president to step foot in a national park. Not a bad work trip. But Grover Cleveland took luxury to a whole nother level. Cause he rolled around in a custom Pullman train car designed by George Pullman himself, complete with a baggage car, a dining car, and a sleeper car for overnight comfort. Presidential travel was getting fancy. But all that legroom couldn't compete with what came next, the automobile. Cause in 1901, William McKinley became the first president to ride in an automobile, a Stanley steam-powered car. Woohoo! Welcome to the future! But sadly, presidential security wasn't evolving as fast as transportation was. Cause when McKinley arrived at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo by train, he was shot and killed. A national tragedy that forced America to completely rethink presidential protection. So when Teddy Roosevelt took office, he became the first president to get full-time Secret Service protection, flanked by at least 2 agents everywhere he went. And oh boy, did those agents have their work cut out for him. Because Teddy didn't sit still. He became the first president to leave U.S. soil while in office when he visited the Panama Canal. Sir, slow down! But while Teddy kept security busy, William Howard Taft kept the mechanics busy. Because Taft was obsessed with horsepower. No, the other kind. He converted the White House stable into a garage, ordered the first presidential motor fleet, and hired the first White House chauffeur. And with that, the last presidential horse officially retired. Go ahead, Harry. You're free now. We'll miss you. But it was Woodrow Wilson who took international travel overseas. Cause after World War I ended, Wilson boarded the SS George Washington and sailed all the way to France for the Paris Peace Conference, making him the first sitting president to visit Europe. And domestically, Wilson was also a traveling machine, cause he launched a cross-country train tour to promote the League of Nations. 3 weeks long, 3 speeches a day, and constant overnight train rides. But the trip pushed him way past his limit, because Wilson collapsed from exhaustion, canceled the tour, and suffered a stroke several days later. It's a harsh reminder of just how physically punishing presidential travel could be. Stay with me, sir! Don't go toward the light! But that didn't stop Warren G. Harding from traveling, because he became the first president to visit Alaska during his nationwide Voyage of Understanding, a massive goodwill tour meant to rebuild trust with the American people after the Teapot Dome scandal. And Harding traveled by train across the entire continent, then continued by ship up the Alaskan coast. But midway through the return trip, Harding suddenly fell ill and died in San Francisco. At this point, travel was literally starting to kill our presidents. So by the time Herbert Hoover came around, America figured maybe it was time to give our president something a little more convenient. So the military floated a new idea: design a presidential airplane just for him. But Hoover wasn't convinced. It was the late 1920s and commercial aviation was still brand new. However, Franklin Roosevelt was ready to take flight, especially after Pearl Harbor. Cause after the 1941 attack on Hawaii, the Secret Service went into overdrive. FDR's presidential limousine immediately got refitted with armor, bulletproof glass, and run-flat tires. The Pullman Company built FDR a one-of-a-kind rail car with thick armored plating, 3-inch bulletproof windows, and a built-in radio system. And the biggest leap of all was air travel. 'Cause in 1942, FDR became the first sitting president to fly, boarding the Dixie Clipper, an actual flying boat that soared all the way to Morocco. And after that success, the U.S. Army Air Forces commissioned the Sacred Cow, a modified C-54 Skymaster with a special elevator for FDR's wheelchair, a stateroom, and a communications office. It was the first official Air Force One style aircraft, even though the call sign didn't exist yet. But after World War II, presidential travel kicked into high gear, 'cause Harry Truman upgraded to a DC-6 called the Independence, the first modern pressurized presidential plane. And boy, did Truman love flying. He even flew to Wake Island in the middle of the Pacific to meet General MacArthur, a trip that would have taken weeks by ship. And on the ground, his ride leveled up too, 'cause Truman added a fleet of armored Lincoln Cosmopolitans, including one with a plexiglass bubble top for parades. But somehow, things got even faster with Dwight Eisenhower. 'Cause as a former general who understood mobility, Ike brought in two Super Constellation prop planes, the Columbine II and Columbine III. But here's where things got terrifying. In 1953, one of Ike's flights accidentally drifted into the same airspace as a commercial airliner with a similar call sign. Smooth skies. Nothing can go wrong today. Air Force 8610, you're clear to land. Wait, I mean East Air 8610, you're clear to land. Wait, what? You're both 8610? Two planes can't be 8610! One of you is the president, the other's a guy named Carl trying to get to Miami. Carl, you pull back right now, you hear me? Whew, that was a close call. To eliminate any future confusion, the military created a brand new, unmistakable call sign for the president's aircraft, Air Force One. I like the sound of that, sir. But Eisenhower didn't stop there, 'cause he also became the first president to fly Marine One, kicking off the era of presidential helicopters. Perfect for a quick little hop without the chaos of a full motorcade. But speaking of chaos, in November 1963, presidential travel changed forever. 'Cause President John F. Kennedy was riding in an open-top Lincoln Continental during a Dallas motorcade when he was assassinated. The car, codenamed X-100, had detachable roof panels to give crowds a better view, and unfortunately, Lee Harvey Oswald got a better view as well. So after the assassination, the Secret Service overhauled the limo with a permanent bulletproof glass top, titanium armor, and bullet-resistant tires. The thing became a 5-ton rolling fortress. And the era of open convertibles and presidential motorcades was officially over. 'Cause when Lyndon Johnson became president, he basically said, "I'm sticking to the skies where they can't shoot me." But even that was too close for comfort. 'Cause he flew into active combat zones on Air Force One and visited U.S. troops in Vietnam, making him the first president since Lincoln to enter a war theater while in office. And the international travel didn't stop there. 'Cause Richard Nixon racked up more frequent flyer miles than anyone before him. He visited Europe, the Middle East, the Soviet Union, and became the first president to visit China. And by this time, Air Force One was no longer just a plane. It was a fully equipped flying command center, so the president could work on the go without a hitch. But speaking of hard work, the Secret Service has to work even harder. Oh, not as hard as you, sir. No one works as hard as you. Anyway, for foreign trips, the Secret Service mapped out everything, from coordinating motorcades to locking down airports to airlifting armored limos ahead of the president's arrival. We planned every single inch of his trips. And since the president flew so much, George H.W. Bush needed to upgrade Air Force One to the Boeing 747 version. A literal flying White House with a conference room, secure comm center, and anti-missile countermeasures. Whoa, what does this button do? But it wasn't just the planes getting supercharged. 'Cause in the late 90s, the presidential motorcade transformed from a modest convoy into one of the most carefully choreographed security operations on Earth. Under Bill Clinton, the presidential limo earned its now famous nickname, the Beast. It's massive, armored, and basically a tank in a tuxedo. But the Secret Service didn't want the Beast turning into an easy target for assassins, so the motorcade expanded, big time. It now included 2 decoy limos, police motorcycles, counter-assault SUVs, an ambulance, and most importantly, the Box and the Diamond, which are Secret Service motorcade formations. The Box is when SUVs wrap tightly around the beast on all sides, usually in high-threat cities where every angle needs to be covered. And the Diamond spreads things out a bit. The lead and trail SUVs form a diamond shape, giving the motorcade room for faster movement and quick lane changes when things get a little spicy. But if you think that looks advanced, the 21st century took presidential travel to its craziest level yet, blending cutting-edge tech with every hard-earned lesson from history. 'Cause after 9/11, Air Force One could refuel mid-air, carry infrared missile jammers, and even had secure video conferencing, so the president could run the country from 40,000 feet high. In fact, George W. Bush got a little carried away with the new gadgets. 'Cause in 2003, he took a covert trip to Baghdad to surprise US troops for Thanksgiving. And to slip through the war zone undetected, they turned off every light on Air Force One, flying completely dark. A wildly dangerous move, especially with the president on board. But hey, the man wanted to deliver some turkey. Yum! But back on the ground, Barack Obama got introduced to the new generation of the Beast. And this thing was insane. It had night vision, tear gas cannons, and a fridge stocked with the president's blood type. The doors were as thick as the cabin door on a Boeing 757. No one's getting through here, sir. But that wasn't Obama's only upgrade, 'cause the Secret Service also unveiled Ground Force One, 2 heavily fortified buses just in case the president wanted to get away on a long road trip. Sir, you know we can just fly, right? I got the helicopter waiting out back. But speaking of flying, in 2019, Trump reserved the call sign Space Force One. And sure, there aren't any presidential spaceships yet. But just you wait. Just you wait. And while you're waiting, this is every US president's education. From a Michigan football star who won back-to-back championships, to an Ivy League genius with photographic memory, to a president so dumb, he graduated at the bottom of his class twice. These presidential backgrounds are so crazy, you might walk away believing you're actually smart enough to become president. And if not, hey, you can always join the Secret Service like me. You get to carry a gun.